Hi guys, Q from Electricus Audio Visual. Welcome back to our channel. In this video, we're going to be talking about how much does a Control4 Smart Home cost in London. So if you're a homeowner looking to renovate your home or even carry out a new build, we're going to be talking about video distribution around the home, Wi-Fi around the home cinema rooms, media rooms, lighting control. But if you watch the full video, we'll be covering all aspects of the smart home completely, and I hope you enjoy it. If you haven't seen previous videos on video distribution, what that means is basically having skyboxes, Apple TVs, Blu-ray players, Rokus, Virgin TiVo boxes. They can all be hidden away in a rack, and then in your room you can just have a TV on the wall. So we class a room as a zone. So basically one zone would be a living room, another zone would be a kitchen, another zone might be a master bedroom, another zone could be a swimming pool, dining room, etc, etc. So for video distribution, this would roughly cost you between £900 and £1,200 per zone. Now, if you'd like to have the sound of your video sources, skyboxes, Apple TVs, etc, played through the in-ceiling speakers, this would be an uplift cost of roughly £1,200 to £1,400 per zone. Our options with video distribution are 4x4, so what that means is basically 4 sources, Apple TV, skyboxes, etc, to 4 zones, 4 rooms of your choice. The next one up will be an 8x8, 10x10, 16x16. So anything above 16x16, we then have to use a solution called AV over IP. So for AV over IP, the system can be as big or as small as possible, but generally the most cost-effective solution is once you go above 16 zones, AV over IP is your solution. So for AV over IP solutions, you're roughly talking about £1,200 per zone, but the more zones you have, so more sources, and the more rooms you have, the lesser that cost becomes. Anything from 16x16 downwards, it'll be a video matrix. Anything above a 16x16 will be AV over IP solution, which for smaller systems isn't very cost effective, but on larger scale screens, so if you wanted 20 rooms, that's when it becomes more cost effective to use that solution. So for our video distribution brands, we tend to use HD Anywhere and Bluestream for our video matrices, and then AV over IP, we use a company called Wirestorm or Binary. In this day and age, obviously we've had COVID and we've realised how important it is to have Wi-Fi around the home and good Wi-Fi around the home with working from home. So with our AV systems, we literally ditch your ISP's router, say from like BT, Sky, and we fit an AV Pro grade router, and then we deploy access points which are known as Wi-Fi boosters around the home, and then all the devices such as TVs, PlayStation boxes, games consoles, etc, we like to hardwire. So for a home that's going to be like a 6-bedroom home with some Wi-Fi around there, and then solid hardwired network to all the major devices that we want to be always online hardwired, for a 6-bedroom home would roughly cost you around, with the AV rack as well, £6,000 up to £12,000 depending on the scale and scope of the home. In addition to that, we like to fit IP controlled PDUs. So what that means is normally our racks are hidden away somewhere. You could be sitting in bed and you'd like to reboot, say, the Skybox because it's frozen up and you don't want to go down to the rack to do it. So for a PDU installed that can do up to 8 devices, that would roughly cost you installed about £800. In addition to that, if you've got an outbuilding, we can obviously extend the network to go out to the outbuilding, and also gates. So gates tend to be a bit further away. So if anything's gone over the 100-meter mark, we tend to install a fibre cable because that can travel data much further than 100 meters and still be part of the home network. In those instances, for a fibre connection, say roughly about 500 meters away from the home, and you want that connected as part of the network so you can put a few cameras in that location as well as intercom, etc, you're roughly talking about £1,500 to £1,800 depending on how far away it is and all the hardware that might be required for that area. Home cinema rooms. So home cinema rooms include a projector, a big screen, a surround sound setup, cinema chairs, and then basically you can either paint the walls or you can get the walls fabric walled. It's up to you. So basically just do a bare room, so painted walls, projector screen, some chairs, and surround sound with the amplification. So for these types of rooms, you're roughly talking between £30,000 and £50,000. Now the chairs can vary from about £5,000 up to about £16,000 depending on the grade of leather you choose, what sort of bespoke customization you'd like. For a room, say, of about 6 meters by 4 meters to get it fully fabric walled and acoustically treated, you're roughly talking between £17,000 up to about £28,000 depending on what fabrics. So we could have a bit of suede in there as well, but somewhere around there. So all in all, with a combination of both the surround sound and the fabric walling, you're roughly talking about the £50,000 mark up to £70,000 mark for a room with 6 chairs, projection and acoustically treated room. So the last option basically is the invisible option. So basically, if you want to hide all your speakers and subwoofers away so they're not on show at all, this would roughly cost you between £18,000 up to about £32,000 depending on the amount of speakers used within the room. Obviously we're talking about a room that's 6 by 4, so for a room that's 6 by 4 meters with invisible speakers set up in Dolby Atmos, you're roughly talking around the 27 grand mark basically for those speakers with the amplification. Mediums we class as a TV on the wall with a surround sound setup. That could be either a 5.1.2 Dolby Atmos setup or larger. But let's just start off with 5.1.2. So basically a 5.1.2 Dolby Atmos setup is basically 3 front channels, so your front left, your front right and center. A pair of rear channels, so your rear left and your rear right. A pair of height speakers for your Atmos. And then basically a subwoofer, 5, 1, 2. So 4 media rooms based on a 5.1.2 setup with amplification would roughly cost you about £8,000 to £10,000 including the TV and what size TV, etc. If your home's been fully refurbished and you'd like to have smart lighting, again, that's not a problem. We can literally take off your old light switches and fit a Control4 retrofit light switch, and then basically that will form part of your smart home solution. So for those keypads, they will roughly cost you about £550 per keypad. So if you had 10 of those, that'd be roughly a ballpark figure of £5,500 in total for all of those keypads and getting them to be formed part of your smart home solution. So if your home's been fully refurbished, we would fit a centralized lighting solution. So basically for every circuit, a circuit being a pendant, some spotlights, maybe some table lamps, maybe an LED strip, those would be classed as 4 circuits. So roughly talking, per circuit on a centralized system, it'd roughly cost you about £200 to £250. More towards the £250 mark to include that light switch that you'd have as well to control that zone. For LED strips within the room, so we tend to always fit single color, whether that be warm white 3000K or cool white 4000K. Now those fitted, so that includes the driver, the tape and the profiles, you're roughly talking about the £150 to £200 mark per linear meter. And then for the RGBW tapes, you're roughly talking about the £250 mark per linear meter to have that installed and form part of the smart lighting system. So for motion sensors as part of your lighting control system, so basically if you had a landing where you'd want a sensor up there so that when your kids come out of their bedroom and they want to go to the bathroom and you just want some night lights to come on, a motion sensor connected to the smart system will roughly cost you about £350 to be part of the smart home system. That's with the products as well as the labour and the programming again. In addition to that, this lighting system can be part of the holiday mode, so all the lights that are connected to the home's constantly recording, and then basically when you go away on holiday you can hit playback and then the home will behave however you've been living in that home since it's been recording. So a great security feature, and it's different from having a timer that comes on every day at 5 o'clock for those lights to come on. In addition to that, you can also have like your front lights and your garden lights to come on at dusk to dawn. So as the geometric clock changes throughout the year, the system knows when dusk is and it knows when sunrise is, and then depending on what you want to come on at those times, we can make the lighting system make those circuits come on to that scene mood, as we call it, mood lighting at those times, and go off at certain times as well throughout the day. So the brands we use for our in-ceiling speakers tend to be either Triad or Episode. With regards to invisible speakers, we tend to use Sonance and Amina. And then for our floor standing speakers, we use a brand called Paradigm. But again, we use B&W, Amphion Kryptons, and the list goes on and on and on, depending on budget and what you're after. So music around the home. So if you're after a pair of in-ceiling speakers and amplification, that would roughly cost you about £800 a pair. In addition to that, we said we could have invisible speakers, so speakers that literally get plastered over so you couldn't see them. We use a brand called either Amino or Sonance in our range of invisible speakers, just because we like how they sound. They would cost you roughly about £700 on top of the original £800. A pair of floor standing speakers, so if you're an audiophile guy and you want just a nice 2-channel setup, it's down to the brand of speakers that you're after. So it can vary quite a lot really, from about £1,500 just for the pair of speakers without amplification, up to 20, even £30,000 depending on what you're after and the look and the design of the speaker. So basically with our music around the home or multi-room audio, it means you'll be able to play TuneIn Radio, Amazon Music, Tidal, Deezer, AirPlay from your phone and Spotify Connect. Security for us is broken down into 3 areas. That is security cameras, security alarm, and then gate automation intercom. So for security cameras, we'll break that down again into 3 areas. So it's basically the recorder, the cameras, and how long you'd like the recording to last before it overwrites itself. So with our systems that we design, we like to give 24-hour recording, so it's not reliant on motion detection, it's literally recording all the time so nothing gets missed. So upon the design stage, we'll talk with you about a few items like how long do you go away on holiday for, so basically that if an event was to happen and you couldn't get access to the recording on your app for whatever reason, but the hard drive was still fine, by the time you go away on holiday and come back again, before the NVR, which is the recorder that we use, overwrites itself, you'll be able to get that footage. So for security cameras, for a standard still camera, non-PTZ, is roughly about £670 to about £850 roughly, depending on the type of camera, whether it be a bullet or a turret. For a pan, tilt and zoom camera, so PTZ camera, you're roughly talking about £1,200 to about £2,000 per camera. And then the recorder will be based on how long we'd like the system to be recording for, and if you'd like to have any future expansion on that for later on having cameras. So let's just say a 6-bedroom home, it has about 16 cameras. You'd like it to record for 3 weeks recording because you go away normally for 2 weeks on holiday. You've got a PTZ on there as one of the cameras. We've linked up the gate intercom cameras onto the system as well. So for a 16-channel recorder with a PTZ and then the rest are fixed cameras, you're roughly talking installed about £7,000 basically for that system. £7,000 to £8,500 depending on the finer details, but I hope that's a good guide for you guys. So for a security system in a 6-bedroom home, so basically PIR sensors, bell box outside, bell box at the back, a couple of keypads so where you type in your code, and also be able the facility to integrate that into the Control4 Smart Home system, you're roughly talking, depending on spec, between £3,000 up to about £8,000 depending on the spec of the alarm system. For GJD laser sensors that we commonly use in our smart home, so what that does is that gives you functionality to tie that in with the automation system. Because GJDs are a great product and they don't get triggered off by moving foxes or animals running across your garden or a tree waving, what that can do is we can send you pre-alerts to your phone via a smart notification, and then also we can also make announcements within the home so that if there's ever motion when you've got them armed, it can notify you that someone's entered your property. So when you set them to be on, you'll get notifications. So for GJD sensors, you're roughly talking per GJD roughly about £450 per GJD sensor, and then the control box that we use as part of our automation again is about £600 installed. So some of the brands that we work with as part of our Wi-Fi network are Package and Electricus for our routers and switching and our PDUs, and then for our Wi-Fi boosters we always use Ruckus because it's a robust Wi-Fi network system that self-heals as well. And all of these devices allow us to remotely monitor all of your equipment that's in the home. Now we can't see what you're browsing, so don't get concerned that we can see what you're browsing, we can't. Smart heating, so predominantly in everyday home now tends to be underfloor heating on the ground floor, then could be RADs, or basically RADs and electric underfloor heating throughout the home. So we tend to use Heatmiser Neo thermostats for these situations. We like to hide away the thermostats so they're not physically on show in a room, limiting the wall acne. So for a room with a thermostat, so let's just say 8 rooms with underfloor heating, with a remote air probe and the Neo hub to connect that up to the system. Now that would cost you roughly about £2,500 to £3,000 installed with all the hardware. An underfloor heating home being electric underfloor heating zone, obviously the matting is the matting, basically a 6x2 bathroom with the heating mat installed and the Heat Miser Neo thermostat to be controlled as part of the smart system. That would roughly cost about £1,000 with the mat. Now if we just do it as remotely or just a thermostat on the wall, a thermostat on the wall controlled as part of the smart system, so no remote air probe, that would roughly cost you installed £200 for a radiator zone. Conditioning for a VRV system, which is basically the air conditioning installer might fit a main unit condenser outside, and you've got multiple units throughout the home that all connect onto that one condenser outside. So for that to be integrated, you're looking at basically £3,000 to £3,500 for that to get commissioned, and then basically bringing all that information from the smart home air conditioning tied together. Now if we wanted to install a BMS system where we use the same brand, which is Coolmaster, and have thermopad units, so what they do is basically we have the underfloor heating connected to that as well as the air conditioning connected to that, so that it can turn one or the other off. So if you decide to cool a room with the air conditioning, it turns off the underfloor heating, and if you decide to turn on the underfloor heating and the cooling is present in that room, it can turn off the cooling. So with those units, the thermopad units, you are looking at roughly £600 per unit, and then the additional part of £3,000 main controller that talks to everything to tell which one to go off and on. So for motorized curtains and blinds, so for a blind, the average blind roughly about £1,100 to £1,500 depending on the type of fabric that you use. And then basically if the blind is over say a couple of meters, you're roughly talking about £1,700 to about £2,200 per blind. Curtains vary depending on what type of curtains you're after, but curtains tend to be around the £3,000 mark with the fabric, and then getting them connected up to the smart home system. And then so if you had some bifold doors with 5 blinds on there, because you've got 5 windows on the bifolds, you'd roughly be looking at £5,700 to £6,300. And again, it's down to the price will increase or decrease depending on what type of fabric you use as part of the decor of your home. Touchscreens, we have 2 options now. We used to have the T3, now we have the T4 touchscreens. So basically they come in 2 sizes with 2 color options on both sizes. So color options are white or black, and they come in 8-inch or 10-inch. So for a 8-inch touchscreen, whether that be it's a portable or an on-wall touchscreen, you're roughly looking about £1,100 per touchscreen, and then for a 10-inch touchscreen, you're roughly looking about the £1,300 to £1,400 installed. So that's the device as well as the installation and commissioning of that touchscreen. Tabletops, you're roughly looking at, because they're just plug-in devices that work off of the Wi-Fi network, those will cost you roughly for an 8-inch £1,000, and then for a 10-inch tabletop you're looking at about £1,150. So with the SR260 remote control, you have the features of basically some custom buttons on there, so you can literally program that one dot could turn the TV on to a certain video source, or it can be another button could be turning on the lights or turn off the lights in the room. Again, it has all access to all the lighting, whatever's connected onto the Control4 system, and it's hard button remote controls. Now these would roughly cost you about £450 per remote control. And then option 2 is the Neo remote. Now this is a touchscreen remote control. Now for the Neo remote control, it is literally everything that's connected on there you can access. Even you can do your alarm clock straight off there and the sleep timer. They would roughly cost you about £850 installed and programmed and supplied. So with your video intercom, basically what we can do is from a button press, we can make announcements within the home. So depending on the time of day, If it's past 8 o'clock and the kids are in bed, when that button is pressed, we can program it so it'll just play the ding dong sound downstairs, or during the day and the button is pressed, we can make it play downstairs as well as upstairs. So depending on the time, we can trigger a different announcement so that we don't wake up your little ones when they're asleep. The video intercom options that we have are the DS2 Mini, the DS2, which comes with a keypad, and then the chime doorbell. The DS2 Mini and DS2 with keypad comes in stainless steel, black and Venetian bronze. Now the DS2 Mini costs installed about £1,100. The DS2 with keypad, that costs you around £1,500 installed as well as the device. And then the chime doorbell, that would roughly cost you about £850 installed. So the rack is basically the hub of the home where all of the devices sit. This is where our main processors sit, so there are a few different options there. So we have the EA5. The EA5 is pretty much what we use in the most homes that have a combination of all the pillars in the home. That would roughly cost you about £2,200 up to £3,200, depending on the scope of the project and how large it is. If you wanted faster switching, there's a processor called the CA10. Now that would cost you about £3,200 to £4,500, depending again about how large your home is. And then EA1 processors, so everywhere we fit a SR260 remote control, we like to put an EA1 processor there because it builds a better system. Now they would roughly cost you about the £850 mark to £1,000 mark per area of where you'd like to have those remote controls if you're to use the SR260 remote control. So for our North London project, where we carried out all of the AV systems, security and the electrical package, including the light fittings, this project cost £250,000 supplied and fitted. So for our East London project, where we done 4 rooms of audio, 4 rooms of video distribution, a media room, Wi-Fi throughout the home and security, this system cost £50,000. On this project, we've done 3 rooms of video distribution, some Wi-Fi around the home, and then obviously just general hardwired connections to all of the smart devices, as well as some general data points as well. This project costs in the region of about £15,000. That's including the TVs as well as all of the other hardware that I've just spoke about. In this home, we've done Wi-Fi throughout the home. We've done a hybrid lighting system, which is basically doing centralized lighting as well as some retrofit lighting throughout the home. And then we've done a 5.1 surround sound setup with video distribution as well for that room. Now that system cost £25,000 with everything included, including the engraved buttons as well. Aftercare. So basically, if you had your home fully connected, where it had all the pillars that we've just discussed in this video, that would roughly cost you about £100 a month basically for aftercare, which also includes a year's foresight. So we would pay for your foresight for the year, and then that will give you anywhere access to your home. So it's not just intercom, but also again everything that's connected to the home. So you don't physically have to be at the home to control your home. You can be sitting on the beach and controlling your home as well. And then For other systems that are smaller, maybe just have video and audio, about roughly between £40 and £60 per month for those systems. So that's the end of our video. So basically now we're giving you the basis of how you should be budgeting for all the items that you might want as part of your smart home, which you can find all our points of contact within the description below. Obviously each system that we do is bespoke to your needs, so budget will be reflected on that. As you saw in those case studies, those solutions were bespoke for those clients there, so those prices might not be exact to what yours might be, but it gives you a ballpark idea. Now if that's still of interest to you guys, you can contact us via email at info@eav-way.co.uk. Alternatively, all our social links are below where you can also get in contact with us, and I hope to see you on the next video.